to Ronin Kaze. That beginning though, at least I have the old, new, old. Housing. Today, YouTube, we're going to talk about housing. I'm in Elder Scrolls Online. I have a couple of really big houses. Elder Scrolls is a real easy game to get housing in. You can get apartments everywhere. They give you an apartment for free. Why do I bring this up? Probably the biggest MMORPG, easy for you to say, is World of Warcraft. And they're introducing housing in their next expansion. And they're so excited about it, they're going to let you start doing your house now if you prepay for the game. And then you can be in the house. The houses will be nothing like here in ESO or other games. And typically, housing's important for players because, number one, it gives them a place to put all the junk you get. And it gives you kind of a place where you're centered around. When I got this piece of property in ESO, I was really happy. It's really wide open. I really don't have buildings. I didn't want a place where there was buildings. I wanted to be out. And as you can see, there's all kinds of stuff over here. There's water everywhere. And I built access to get out on the water in areas that normally maybe you might not build a house or something. So that's what you're seeing right now. I've had houses in a variety of other games. One of the games was Star Wars Old Republic. I had a house or houses in there, and I lost them, when I wasn't there that often. Final Fantasy 14 was another game I had a house in, and I ended up losing it because I didn't keep staying in the game. And I invested quite a time in. I don't know if it was real world money, but like my own money in the game, like that I had earned to get this house. So it's interesting. And so with WoW doing this, I thought we'd talk about housing for a little bit. On a macro level, housing is something here in the United States that we all feel entitled to. We have a lot of programs for veterans. There's a program to get houses. We have whole government programs to help people and to back the loans they get for the houses. And in 2025, when I'm making this video, one of the things are the generation. So in the United States, in your country, the labels may be different, but there's they call it the silent generation. That was up to 1945. Those were the people that fought in World War II. Then the baby boomers were the children of that generation, and that's from like 45 to 64. And then there's Gen X. I'm in that one, and that's a little bit smaller. What's important about the baby boomers, it was the biggest population after the war. Everything was settled. There was less, craziness in the world. There was Vietnam War and Korean War were not big wars compared to World War II. I mean, they were impacted the countries that it was in, but it wasn't like the world level. The level of the war that spanned the globe. So during this time, people had more children. There was more economic stability. Trade markets grew. And so, at least in the U.S., that was the dream, to go to college and have a house. That was a large population. The children of baby boomers were smaller. It's a smaller demographic. They didn't have as many children. One of the things, people moved from the country into suburbia or cities, mainly suburbia. In the United States, they had the interstates program was in the 50s, kind of put a network of roads throughout the country instead of it being trains. Before then, there were U.S. roads, like if you heard of Route 66 or US 20, those were roads, national roads, but, they went through each state, not like the interstate where, you might have like Highway 10 that goes from Florida all the way across to California, and then you have like I-75 that goes to the top of Michigan down to Florida. So you have these interconnecting large interstate federal highway systems. This is my next house that I just got recently. I'm not a big house collector. It's in any of these games, you're collecting some of it. I just like going outside in a lot of these games and having a place like that. And I don't have the resources. I'm house rich and furniture poor, YouTube. So we're talking about the U.S. and the U.S. market. And so there's a dearth, there's a lack of housing for millennials. It's a generation after Gen X, and then Gen Y is after that. The expectations each generation has is to get a house earlier and earlier. When I went to buy a house in 2000, things had changed in the United States so much that I could get a home loan. Previous to that, you had to put 20% down, and you had to prove that you could own a home. Now, part of that was previously in the Clinton era, we had gotten rid of bankruptcy in the form that it used to be, where it discharged all your debts. Now they could still get you, so then lenders were more likely to lend people money, and then you've seen the Big Short and all that happen, and there was a subprime market where you could just pay a low 5-year mortgage, flip the house, and you'd never get the big balloon payment. And people keep trading up and up and up. When I bought my house, right, I had been in the military. I didn't use my GI Bill, but I got a very inexpensive house. It was expensive for us. It was a lot. But that was because, it was a lot. But ultimately, when I was working with other people, they buy more expensive houses. And in my head, I said, how are you going to afford to pay for that? Because we're making okay money, but not that kind of money. And so millennials, they're another big population. There's not as many houses available for them now because the baby boomers are still living. But when the baby boomers pass away, there's going to be a glut of houses, because all those people that have houses now that could afford houses that are in there, just think the last baby boomer was born in 1964, 40, they're turning 65. They got 10 more years to live. Then you have this super glut of houses. Additionally, these younger folks, and I don't blame them, this is not anything against them, but their expectation, they'd like a new house. My house I bought was 100 years old. I didn't even think about that it was already previously built or whatever. Some would argue it's better, worse. The whole point is, I understand if you want something new that no one else said, but you're going to pay a premium for that. So part of the housing market in the U.S. are people that there's no way previously that if you were 22 years old and out of college and had a bunch of college debt, that you'd ever expect to own a home. I didn't get my home till I was like 33 or something. And I bear it, and it wasn't expensive. And there's still houses today you could buy for that price, or, as of a couple of years ago, there was a big rise here in the past couple of years, but that's all going to change, because ultimately economics are supply and demand. Why are games great? Because you can go see that if you play a game like World of Warcraft, if you play Final Fantasy, if you play ESO, if you play any game that has an in-market economy, you'll see that the most desired things cost the most. It's based on scarcity or demand. So if you want to understand economics, you can play a video game like World of Warcraft. You can farm basic cloth, and then you can try to sell it. And what you'll see is the price varies. And if you have a bunch and you dump it in the market to sell it quickly, you have to go low on the price, so it's not worth as much. And these dynamics are everywhere. Why are video games pretty decent except when the volume's loud? Because Ronin forgets to turn it down. They're great because they're simulations or models of human behavior, and you can see that behavior always. Why don't I play PvP games? Because there's gankers YouTube. There's people that camp where you spawn camp. Now, everyone doesn't do that. And my son assures me that in Arc Raiders that it's not like that. Even though it's PvP everywhere, some people are okay. But he said there are some people that are just still PvPers. And then he told me a story that confirmed that. So for my entertainment, I don't want to be frustrated with or get even. There's enough of that in the real world. Why do I want to simulate the worst parts of that? But nonetheless, that's one reason that you play games, is you can teach yourself about economics and everything. It's pretty easy. So what does that mean for you? Well, hopefully there's a game that you can buy a house and put your trophies in your game. And hopefully in real life, you can find a strategy to do that. I think I mentioned it before in the recent reincarnation of this channel, is that you could get a trade in HVAC, heating and AC, heating and cooling, electrical or plumbing, and you're going to make money for the rest of the time because you're going to need houses. Houses need to be up, kept, and all of that. The thing with college is, a college, if everyone has a college degree, I want you to think about again in economic terms. When a while back, when let's say after President Obama was leaving office, there was all kinds of, who's going to win the election. Some people were saying we could give college, free college. Well, if everyone has college education, guess who works at McDonald's on YouTube? College educated people are working in McDonald's because that's only the jobs out there, right? We just raised the floor of all that. An interesting thing, I do think that we should have higher minimum wages, but if you have higher minimum wages, then how much is McDonald's going to cost? Because we got to pay the workers. I mean, should the companies make as much profits? That's why you shouldn't go out to eat. If you want to fight the man, then you buy your own groceries and do that. You might raise chickens so your eggs are, whatever the real cost of chicken eggs are, as you build the chicken coop and the feed and everything. And you're going to see that there's a point where it break evens. A lot of times I've mentored people about business and those kind of things. They want to start a business. And they look at one thing. They say, well, it costs me X amount of dollars to get this product and I can resell it for Y. But they don't look at inventory, the cost of inventory, the cost of your money tied up in inventory, your time in doing that, advertising, and those kind of things. And they think in a very short term. Like, well, I have friends and then we can do this. Hey, so once I got my house, we'll get back to that. Once I got my house, I got to clean up the neighborhood. And I got giants and big mammoths. So now you're going to watch me. I had to change my build. Part of the thing in ESO, I can make any skill onto my character. Once it gets to level 50, I swap out a skill and then train another skill. So I don't have my taunt anymore, and I got to raise this skill up. So that's what I'm doing now, and I'm going to get some dragons and woolly mammoths out here. Maybe they're not woolly, YouTube. But talking about businesses and doing those things, you don't calculate the entire cost. I want you to think about this. I want to put t-shirts on the channel. I found a place with thermal transfer that's dirt cheap. It's like $3, no quantity. I found a good place where shirts that are good for thermal transfer. They're like $3 to good quality shirts. Great. So that's $5. So if I sold the shirts for $20, I'm making $20. $25, I'm making $20 on a shirt. No, because I have to buy an iron, a decent industrial iron thing to do that. So let's say it costs $300. And if I expect to sell 100 shirts, that means that costs $3 for every shirt. So that means now my price of shirts like $8, $9. How much should I pay myself per hour for do this? Well, how many shirts can I do an hour? Let's say I can do one shirt every 5 minutes. So I can do 12 an hour. I got to do 100. So that's like what, 8 sets of that. So if that's 8 hours and I pay myself $20 an hour, that's 160. So 160 plus 8 times 100, right? I got to do all this math, and then I can work out my per piece price. It's like, it's not going to be a ton. Like $20 an hour, that's 160. I divided by $116 an hour. Now I got $8 or $9 plus $16 an hour means I'm breaking even at $25 an hour. Now, everything over 100, I take out the cost of the iron. So I take out $3 per shirt. So now I'm making $3 per shirt. That's why I don't offer shirts yet, because I'm not even making any money on the channel, YouTube. Not your fault, my fault. I should make better content. Housing, YouTube. So those are some of the economics when I do that to people. But if I took a shortcut and I said, oh, my cost of everything's only $9. Well, it's not in reality. So that's the housing market. You're going to be able to get a house. You're just not going to get it when you're 21. Some of you might be lucky enough to get it when you're 21. But I'm going to tell you what, if you go to college and rack up $100,000 of school debt, then you've got a $100,000 house. That means you're going to pay about $250,000 over the course of that loan, maybe less, depending on what you get for the loan. Am I almost done here? No, I'm doing some other stuff. So not so easy to buy a house. You're going to, maybe on a school loan, you can accelerate that. So you only pay it in 15 years. In 15 years, you're 36. Then you buy a house and you're going to pay it off when you're, let's say, between 50 and 60. There's no shortcuts, YouTube. You can hit the lottery. And that's a decent job if you're making $100,000 a year. And this is what I also tell everyone. If you're making $40,000 a year and your partner's making $40,000 a year, your net income's $80,000. And if you're working together and you're not really extravagant and you cook your own food and all that, you're going to be fine. You're going to have enough disposable income to do other things with it. Can you eat out at a place every single day? No, that's super expensive. It's $10 average for a meal, so it's $20 for two of you. It's $20. If you eat out 5 times a week, that's $100. And if you spend $100 on food a week, you'd have enough to build up. Then you have cats, you got dogs, right? Should prices go down some? Yes, but we also all want to get raises, so we got to factor all of that in. So I don't want you to get down. You're going to get housing in WoW, which is great, but sometimes I'm done with WoW. I sometimes miss the mechanics, but at the end of the day, the graphics for me are just dated. Too dated. Star Wars is kind of like that, but I can live with it. Guild Wars is okay. I'll be interested to see what their new graphics look like. But housing, YouTube, don't despair. If you don't have a house yet, you will. You'll get one. At least you'll get one in a game that you can afford. Maybe not in real life. I'm just joking, YouTube. You're going to be able to get a house. What's the one bad thing about a house? You're tied to it for a long time. So that was a change for me. But this is Ronin Kaze. I appreciate everyone helping the channel. Hope you like the Linux stuff. Going to go back to games and some of my drivel that I talk about. There's not really a lot to say more about Linux. I'm playing it in all the games or I'm using my Mac. So there you have it, YouTube. Have a wonderful day. This is Ronin Kaze out.